This is the road to 2019, and as always, every week on Friday at 9:30 p.m., we take a look at all the big events of the week that have just gone by, and we try and see how they could possibly impact the build-up to that big, grand general election that we are looking forward to in 2019. If we do that on every week, this week in particular has given us so much to think about and so much to talk about. Starting, of course, with that outrage and furor all across the country, protests about attacks on women, those two ghastly rapes that we have seen, protests that were happening not just in India but also abroad. Then we had the Prime Minister going to England, making a big speech out there, which many people thought was giving some hints and indications as to what his strategy, his campaign, what his message might be in the build-up to 2019. And then, of course, you had a large number of ex-IAS officers and top bureaucrats writing a letter to the Prime Minister, an open letter saying, you need to do something about what's happening with women, you need to do a lot more. A message which was repeated by the IMF chief. So, as I said, a lot's been happening. And just when you thought this week couldn't get any busier and more exciting, then a number of things have happened in regard to the judiciary. To start off, Supreme Court dismissing that entire plea for an investigation into the death of Judge Loya, and in fact saying that it was almost an act of criminal contempt to be raising it. Maya Kudnani acquitted this morning, and then the Congress party going and saying that we need to impeach the Chief Justice of India. I think that's a fair summary of all that's happened in the week. Now, how does all of this impact the general election next year? Well, actually, there are lots of interesting things in here for us to discuss and to talk about and to see what's setting the stage. Tom Vadakan joining us from the Congress Party. Great to have you with us. We have Desh Ratnigam, RSS supporter, who's going to be with us for a short while before he leaves us. Swati Chaturvedi, senior journalist. Smita Prakash, editor, ANI, with us as well. Aarti Jairath is with us. And we have Raghav Avasthi, lawyer, member of the RSS. And it's a great pleasure to welcome onto the program Jawahar Sarkaar, former bureaucrat, one of those who signed that letter and wrote that letter. Also, of course, has headed Prasar Bharati for a long time. So it's a particular pleasure, Jawahar, to have you with us on this particular program. As I said, a lot happened. Where do we begin? Let's start with the very latest incidents that have happened just today. Before I get into attacks on women and the rapes and the protests and how that pans out, the Congress party, by going and asking for the impeachment of the Chief Justice of India, is that a rather high-risk strategy that you've adopted? And there seems to be some discrepancy even within your party whether this is the right thing to do or not the right thing to do.
Vikram, we are a democratic party. There are a couple of lawyers who have cases pending and they wouldn't like to take it up. At the present moment, take on the head of the Supreme Court. But be what it may, let me tell you something. This is not something that started with Justice Loya's issue. This started off, signatures were collected, we were waiting. We thought for 3 months from January 12, we've been waiting, 3 months. Judges have come out, 4 judges, unheard, unprecedented in the history of India. Indian judiciary, we had a situation of judges addressing the public, asking justice from public, which was one of the most strange incidents. Now, after that, we waited patiently for 3 months. Then there was a delay in getting an appointment with the Vice President, because Vice President was traveling, and finally when they got the appointment. So when you talk about the timing, it has nothing to do with this.
It's nothing to do with Judge Loya, but I'm just saying, you do realize that it's very difficult to actually impeach a Chief Justice. In fact, it's very difficult to impeach any judge. You don't have the numbers to do it unless something really dramatic happens.
I agree, we don't have the numbers. But this message must go. I think by the time the process starts, the Honorable Chief Justice would retire. But the point is, a message must go to the judiciary. This can't continue. This is not just a message to the Chief Justice of India. Those who fall in line with this kind of thinking, with this kind of management, we are telling...
So what are you saying is being managed? I'm just trying to understand what your charges, what is being managed. There are some specific charges that you've laid down for the impeachment. Exactly. Are you saying that what was said in Judge Loya's case, or for that matter, the acquittal of Maya Kudnani or other things, are you saying that there is there's a distinct bias that's coming in judicial institutes? Is that what you're charging?
Well, that's one of the few things we are charging them. There are 5 issues which have been raised, and I don't want to repeat that in public domain again. There is a case of the cases being passed on to benches which are very interested parties. I'm not into all that. We have made a case, we have raised an issue. The issue is we need to support judiciary at this juncture, because if judiciary fails, India fails.
Okay, so I'm going to take a lesson from that and throw it to everyone else, and I want to get everyone's opinion on this. Yeah, one second. I'll come to you also. I want to get Deshan as well. One of the issues that perhaps arise, I'm just trying to see how this can be extrapolated into the big picture story. The question about an attack on institutions and the fact that institutions are being systematically eroded is something which is a charge that the opposition has made in the past. It's made it about the Election Commission, it's made it about the CBI, about the Enforcement Directorate, about the tax authorities, the CVC, and now the judiciary itself. Deshat, is this something that you think is going to be a big factor in the next 1 year?
So the fact
charges that the government in some way or the other is influencing institutions?
No, not the government. I'm very categorical on that. What is happening if a party wins an election, there is no problem with the Election Commission. When it loses, the machines become the problem. Similarly, when an institution like CAG finds corruption charges against a particular government, the CAG is bad. Now, there is nothing wrong with the CAG. So it is the politics of convenience which is being done. Institutions are working very fine. And in fact, 12th January 2017 was the blackest day for the Indian judiciary, when 4 judges, and I am saying very categorically, and I have said so before, when 4 judges came on the streets. And this is misbehavior. When they contradict and violate their own rules of conduct, this is misbehavior for which impeachment is called for. Not for the delivering judgments. This is not, and in fact the word uses removal. Not even the word impeachment is used in the Constitution.
Okay, but clearly he said it's a signal which is going on, because obviously he'll retire.
So he's entitled, the political parties are entitled to do politics about it. But the fact remains, a particular judgment has been passed, and look at, they sit over, they collect the signatures, sit over it, wait for Justice Loya's case to come up. When they don't get a favorable verdict, then they start again pursuing the impeachment motion. So this exposes them very clearly.
Okay, Jawahar Sarkar, let me just come to you on that question. On specifically what's happened with the judiciary, but the question of institutions is something that I think directly or indirectly, many of the top retired bureaucrats who'd written that letter, you also seem to be alluding to it in some sense.
Yes, of course. You see, we are distressed at what's going on. We are distressed at the corrosion, at the erosion of values that institutions are being made to go through. And that is a singular point. That's one of the major points on which we have written this letter. In fact, we also have been praying for a re-inquiry into Judge Loya's death, but that's a different matter. Now, we have spent our lives upholding these institutions. We have had our problems with different regimes, but then that's part of the occupational hazard. We have gone through it, but right now we see a deliberate attempt to erode the autonomy of most of these institutions and to stymie or to interfere in their functioning. We have, as I said, spent a lifetime in it, and we are across the services. All the services are represented here. So collectively, I think we are in a position to really understand where the engine is failing and splurting and making all sorts of noises and what's wrong with it. We have no option but to break our conditioned silence and to come up and flash the yellow card.
You were the head of you were the CEO of Prasar Bharati for a long period of time, an organization obviously which was not from now but from all time, from time immemorial, often been accused of, of serving in a sense the government of the day. So the pressures that come on all institutions is something which you would be no stranger to. I mean, Prasar Bharati and institutions like that have always been told that you're working for the government of the day.
Not necessarily. Prasar Bharati has this schizophrenic existence where the law says one thing, and in reality the ministry and others try to circumvent this part. It's been a very difficult 4 years plus where different regimes have attempted, but then I had to leave in this regime because it was getting to be too much. We know that when we take up the job that nothing's going to be smooth sailing, that we have to fight for what we consider constitutionally correct. We have to suffer for it. We are all prepared for it. I mean, most of us are prepared. Some make compromises that I would not like to talk about. But then Prasar Bharati was a case example where I found the maximum pressures to fall in line. While one could manage with up to 2014, after that it became more and more difficult, And I can go on record on many scores. I believe it's gone even much worse now, much worse. The ministry has more or less taken over Prasar Bharati.
Right. So, Deshathan, does that answer what you're saying? But he's saying that it's happening in institution after institution. And this, let's face it, we're looking at what the opposition may or may not do. They may or may not have a leader. But if they are coming out on the road to 2019 and saying institutions are systematically being eroded, that can sometimes be a very emotive message to take. I mean, it worked in 77,
That's the
for
negative
example.
narrative being built. Institutions are working perfectly all right. Just because it doesn't suit a particular set of people, you can't say that they are being eroded. In fact, every institution is trying to give its best in the given circumstances. These are challenging times for the country. And in fact, every political party must come together and instead of politicizing these institutions, uphold their dignity. That's one appeal that I can make.
Okay, Swati, let me get the others in on this.
Yes, I just want to say two things. One is that we forgot to mention the RBI, and we saw that what happened with demonetization, that was certainly eroding the autonomy of the RBI. I concur with what Mr. Sarkar said, because I've just
I also forgot the press, by the way, because the media in many ways
North Korean, of course. But no, what he's saying about Prasar Bharati is true, because I just did a story where Smriti Irani stopped the salaries of Prasar Bharati employees for 3 months till they signed an MOU. And somebody who's the boss of Prasar Bharati actually came on record to say that to me in an interview that he'd never faced so much pressure in his life. And he's somebody who's a card-carrying member of the current establishment, Surya Prakash. So, you know, obviously institutions are under siege. There's no doubt about it.
Smita, this entire question of, so I mean, just on on institutions, you think is there merit in this argument, and certainly is there any electoral merit in taking this argument forward?
Look, without speaking about any particular bureaucrat or retired bureaucrat, I would like to say that every retired bureaucrat thinks that he was the epitome of propriety, of righteousness, whereas the ones who have come after that have compromised, whereas their generation of bureaucrats were not. And I've said this time and again, it's not just bureaucrats, it's also service people in the armed services, people in educational institutions. They all feel that they were the best and they were committed to their jobs, and it's the ones who have come later who have compromised. Since we've seen people, we've seen governments come and go, we've seen bureaucrats come, retire, go on to take other jobs, I would just say that every government that comes in, it seems like they are cracking down on institutions, and especially a government that comes in with a political party that comes in with this huge majority. It does seem at times that they are putting enormous amounts of pressure on certain wings of government. It's up to the bureaucrats, it's up to the media and other organizations to push back as much as possible. And I don't, frankly, I don't see anything different now than I saw in the earlier.
So let's come back to what really sparked off this entire line of discussion. Okay, we've heard for institutions like, you know, CBI and others, we've heard it time and again. Even Prasar Bharati, any government which comes where the CBI is called, oh, it's a cage parrot, and look what's happening, look what's happening. Exactly. But this is what Tom Bartakan began this discussion by saying is that he's fearing for the independence of the judiciary. Now that's almost the first time I'm ever hearing something like that.
Right, no, it might be the first time that you're hearing it. That's true that what they have done is unprecedented. But I also feel that in a year before election, there's going to be a lot of kite flying by the opposition, whether it's the Congress or other political parties. They're going to try and bring up issues every other month to see which one captures the imagination of the people, whether it is about women's issues, whether it is about institutions, and whichever captures the imagination, that's going to be the issue for 2019.
Actually, I have to get a response from Tom on that. Is it kite flying? You're floating this particular
Because
balloon.
it's not going to go through.
Yeah, you're not. So I'm just actually asking.
No,
you said we are sending a message, as she says. Are you floating this particular kite that attacks an institution? Is this
It's not about kite flying. There is this mention about the gentleman from the RSS who said that CAG was good then, bad now, whatever. Now let me give you an instance. Telecommunication Ministry, CAG gave a negative report. What happened? They removed the CAG's report and hired a private chartered accountant. Now you talk about institutions. This has been a situation not during elections, but they have been following this up simultaneously. And CAG was the same CAG which blamed us for whatever happened.
Okay, can I just say to Aarti? Yeah.
You know, it's really funny that the Congress talks about attacking the institution of the judiciary, because actually it all began with Indira Gandhi when she superseded about 4 judges or something to become to appoint
The last impeachment was Congress party.
So it happened.
Ramaswamy was represented by Kapil Sibal, who's now writing the
Anyway, so to get back to this whole thing, you know, the point is what we're seeing today is a very funny thing, because for the last 3 years, or the first 3 years of this government, the government completely controlled and dominated the national narrative. Now we're seeing the boot on the other foot, actually, because the government, there is a narrative, an alternative narrative that is being built up by the opposition, and the government doesn't seem to be able to counter it. The government, there is either silence from the government,
I'm going to come back.
I'm
going to come out in 15 minutes from now.
Not being able to, come up with.
There are some who will say that this is exactly the position the government wanted to be in, and you may have seen snatches of that. And I'm going to play that from Narendra Modi in London, when he says, I am going to work, they are all coming out to get me. That's exactly the position that sometimes the Prime Minister does really well at. Narendra Modi has been able to effectively use this. Everyone's ganging up against me.
The same thing that Indira Gandhi did, by the way.
That's exactly what he has sometimes used the most effectively. And I'm going to come to that particular theme in a minute. But he's itching to say something on this entire impeachment matter.
As a matter of fact, I would say that it is actually disingenuous on the part of Mr. Vadakan, a senior leader of the stature of Mr. Vadakan, to conflate what happened at this press conference with their whatever motion for removal. Technically, it's not impeachment. Because I think the primary grouse raised by the 4 judges was that there was no transparent mechanism for allocation of cases. I think
the Judge Loya case, in a sense, is
one of the cases. It was in relation to the allocation of the Judge Loya case to a bench, to one particular bench that they had a problem with. Now, the Chief Justice of India has exercised his unqualified prerogative as master of the roster to allocate rosters, topic-wise rosters, to each and every bench. And as is the practice in all chartered high courts throughout the country, even in the Delhi High Court, he has kept all PIL matters for himself. But I think there is no controversy left. But I think the problem with the Congress parties and that they don't want the Ram Janmabhoomi case hearings to continue. And there was a very significant point, Vikram.
Can I just ask
you a question?
This is a really interesting point.
There was a significant point made by Mr. Sibal when he said that the practice is that when such proceedings have been initiated, then the judge against whom these proceedings have been initiated does not sit in court. I think that's what they want. I think their intentions are now crystal clear to the people of the country.
When I said I wasn't sure which way this is going to go politically, so wait a minute. Now here's where the high risk part of it comes in. We've already seen the implications of the judiciary, what has happened this week. Maya Kodnani, Judge Loya, links to Amit Shah, all of those questions we know. Now, what he's just said is, where is the Ram Janmabhoomi question?
But how do they know? No. How do they know what the decision in the Ram Janmabhoomi matter is going to be?
I'll tell you what.
How can you say that?
I will tell you why I can say that. I'll tell you. You've asked this question. Let me answer it.
No.
I've heard this question. Let me answer it.
Let
me answer it. I think if you remember what happened in court when Mr. Sibal was arguing first for the Sunni Waqf, but then there was some confusion as to who he was arguing for. But he made a very significant point. He said that the hearing in this case should be deferred till after
That's still not an
2019.
answer to my question.
He said that. No, I will come to your question. Now, I think the Congress party feels that irrespective of which way the matter is decided, they feel that the BJP is going to reap some kind of a political advantage out of it. They want to prevent that. They failed in court. So now they are trying to do it through other means. So all that I am saying is that they should be clear. They should, Mr. Vadakan should tell us if he wants a Ram temple or not. What is the Congress party?
What are you doing since then?
So
you came
he
to
should tell
power
us.
on the
He
basis
should
of
tell
building
us.
the temple, and now you're leading
that
it
was
to the,
another election.
to the court.
That was
And
another
now,
election.
again,
that was about 20 years ago.
Ramji will be wondering
No,
how
that
many
was-
times,
that
how
was
many
Mr.
times
Advani
you
wala
make
whether
this
you want the
promise.
temple. You should tell us first. I don't represent the BJP. I don't represent the
Point
BJP.
is, you
Do you
bring
not want the
Ramji
temple to
in
be built?
between,
Do you not
and you
want the
wonder,
temple to be
what
built?
is this all
Why do you want
about?
the hearing to be deferred till after 2019?
And you hold it
Let the
now.
hearing-
Take
Yes.
a decision now.
Okay,
Good,
pause.
good,
Why don't
excellent.
you?
But why did
Raghav.
Mr. Sibal say that he wants the
Raghav,
hearing
Tom.
to be held after
Okay,
2019?
Raghav, Tom, pause. Okay, so when it comes to again institutions looking at it, so one is, is this Congress thing about where we're not getting justice in XYZ cases? Look what's happened to Maya Kodani, look what happened to Judge Loya, XYZ, look at what those 4 judges have said. Is that it? Or as he's saying, is it a preemptive strike against any judgment that might come in Ram Mandir?
He doesn't want a judgment to come till after 2019.
No,
Sibal has made it clear, Mr.
The
Sibal has.
thing is, no, the thing is, Vikram, if this motion is actually accepted and inquiry begins, actually by convention, the Chief Justice has to recuse himself from all cases that he's
what they
hearing.
want.
From all cases. So that includes, I mean, not just the PILs and everything else that he's hearing, but it also includes the Ram Mandir case.
Okay.
So whether this is the actual intention of the Congress or not, this is going to be a
Intentions are
byproduct.
clear.
This is
He
going to be a
retire in 6
byproduct of.
months.
It
Okay?
is going to be a
Now,
byproduct
These are
of the
potentially really crucial 6
No,
months.
no, absolutely.
Okay.
These are crucial 6 months.
And this is going to be.
2019, and now the accusation is that we want to cross
This
it.
is what
But
Mr.
Parliament, these
Logically
are-
in court.
Whether
Mr.
it's
Vadakan, this is
impossible.
But hang on.
Okay,
This is
let's
what
not
Mr. Sibal
impute
said in court.
motives
But
to
hang
you.
on,
Let's
but hang
not
on, hang on.
impute
Smita,
motives to
Smita,
you,
Smita.
but it is going to
At
be a
the end of the
byproduct,
day,
right?
at the end of the day, whatever the thought process out here, is it a slightly high-risk strategy for the opposition or for anybody else to play? Because whether you like it or not, the very fact we are having, for example, debate, a discussion is coming up as to whether even the question of impeachment should be allowed to be discussed or not discussed. That is a matter which the courts are going to be looking at.
PIL.
I think
There is a PIL about that, whether you
correct.
should
The word
allow
is
discussion
removal.
on this.
Removal.
Questioning the judiciary, questioning the election commission in an election year, is it something which is a high-risk strategy for the opposition to follow?
No, I don't think questioning any institution is wrong. We are a democracy. Question all you want. I think questions should be done. I don't believe that any opposition party or anybody should be stopped from asking the questions. It is up to the ruling party to give explanations, and that is their job. They have to do it. Whether it is...
But in this case, it's not the ruling
Doesn't
party would say,
matter.
what do we have to do with the Supreme Court of India, which is a very respected institution, doing something, yes or no, or the
No, but
election
why
commission,
is it-
unless somebody has to come out and be able to establish
No,
that
we
the courts are
question-
doing something on behalf of
We
the
question
BJP.
every arm of the government. We question every pillar of democracy. Why can't we question the judiciary too? I don't think that, anybody's a holy cow out here. So that aspect, I don't believe that the opposition does not have the right or should not do it because, oh my God, that's one institution. It's like saying, army ko question mat karo. Once you say army, no. No, why? We have to question everything. That's what a democracy is all about. So fine, let them question the democracy, and when they are doing this thing about the impeachment, they're not going to get it through. That's understandable. Okay. But the fact that they want to do it, why not? I don't believe that they shouldn't be allowed to.
Okay.